This podcast is sponsored by Live.Word of Freeman J. Burns Realty. Are you looking to buy or sell a home or investment property in Charlotte, North Carolina, or any of the surrounding cities? If so, contact me. You can reach me by email at nitra@freemanjburns.com. That's Nitra, Nitra, at Freeman, the letter J, Burns.com. At Burns Realty, we are passionate about providing a world-class experience and building relationships that will last long after your real estate transaction.
It's official right now. In 4 minutes or less, we're gonna crown all of them right now. My mama, your mama, your baby's mama's mama's mama. This is dedicated to you, wife. If you're near a woman right now, wherever you at, just turn to him and say, this is dedicated to you. You are appreciated.
To the 5th episode of
Live.Laugh.Word.
I am Chris Word.
And I'm Nitra.Word.
And we have another very exciting show for you today.
Yes, we do.
So because of the recent inauguration of our new president, Donald Trump, there were a lot of marches around the world the very weekend afterwards.
Yes, there were.
And I can honestly admit that I was not aware of the marches that were taking place. I was not aware of their purpose or any of the issues that they were speaking to until afterwards. And that was only because it was a few seconds as I was passing on the news. But it did make me do some research and some self-reflection on the issues that were brought up. And a lot of them were women's rights and women's issues of equality. Mm-hmm. So that is what we're going to discuss on this episode today. So we have a very exciting guest with us as well.
Yes, we do.
Go ahead.
Our good friend Toyin.
Hey, everyone.
Yes, Toyin is visiting us from New York. And as we were discussing this topic, she has some very great insight into her experiences as a woman, her experiences as an African-American woman, and as well as a woman in New York. And I just say that from the big city perspective as well.
Right.
So let's jump right into our topic.
Okay, sounds great.
So overall, I can say that very rarely I think about some of these struggles or issues that women experience on a daily basis. I think as a male, I just see my issues and my day-to-day routine.
Uh-huh.
So I would open up the floor to say, what are some issues that you all think of or experience? What's one that comes right to mind? Is it something you experience at work? Is it something in a relationship? Or is there a woman's right issue that is important?
Well, hey, this is Toyin. For me, when Chris brought this topic up to me and we were talking about it, one of the things that I always, think of, and it just, came to my attention is the fact that women are always treated differently based on their sex. Why is it that it's not where we can just be, without the gender? And one of the things that I face in New York often is, hey, why aren't you smiling? Men will talk to me and expect that just because I'm a woman, I'm supposed to walk down the street and smile at all of them.
You're just supposed to be happy at all times.
Just supposed to be happy at all times.
Yeah.
But men don't get the same kind of expectation from women or other men.
Yes,
So that's one of the big things that I always think about as a woman. Why am I being treated differently in this context?
Right.
True, and I hear that. I'm playing the devil advocate today.
Okay.
So in that same context of a woman walking down the streets of New York and being expected to smile, I feel like if there was a woman, I saw a study on this on one of those TV shows, I can't recall right now, where there was a woman walking down the street and she dropped her books. And in this study, it was between a very attractive woman and a not so attractive woman, and how many people were inclined to help her. But in that same breath, if it was a woman who went down the street, dropped her books, there would be men who would stop and help her. If it was a man, people would be like, he has it. That's a man. He can pick up his own books.
Right.
So at what point do you say, yeah, they expect me to smile in the same breath. If I drop something on the street, I expect a man to help me pick it up.
Right.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Okay. Well, with that, that goes into the expectations of, men versus women, chivalry versus, just kind of what are the day-to-day expectations,
right.
Man versus woman.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I understand that if a gorgeous woman walks down the street, drops her books, a man's going to go ahead and help her. The same thing as if maybe a less attractive woman were to do the same thing, maybe some men will help her.
Right.
But again, as a woman, day to day, it's not just the smiling. It's
Right.
the cat calls. It's the
Right.
shouting my name down the street
Right.
when it's not even really my name.
Right,
But hey,
right.
sweetie, hey, baby, and all this other stuff.
Right.
It's kind of like, well, why am I subject to that just because I am a woman? I have a woman's body
Right.
and a woman's presence. Why
Right.
can't I just be me? And I feel like that's a lot of what the marches around the world, not even just the March on Washington, which, obviously expanded to such a great extent. Women are talking about, hey, I'm just as important. I'm just as equal as the man, in an equivalent situation.
Right. And I would speak to that from just my experience and in my relationship. I know after, doing some research and thinking about the march, some of the things that I do to my wife or just in passing. And in one example, we were discussing something and she made a suggestion about a tax return, and I shot it down very quickly and was kind of dismissive of it. Oh, that's not important. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of that, or that's not a big deal. And then a couple days later, someone else mentioned the same thing that my wife brought up, and then I was like, oh, it's important now.
And that someone else was a male.
Yes. Another male brought it up, and I was like, oh, it's important now. We should go and try to figure this out. Now it's an issue that we need to resolve. So I sat back and thought, why wasn't I so proactive or taking initiative when my wife mentioned it? And it wasn't until another male mentioned it that it provoked me to action. And in those ways, it may not have been a intentional being dismissive because she was a woman, but it was maybe a subconscious thing that occurred. So
I'm glad that
I
you were
apologize
able
for
to
that.
recall
I can
thank you.
apologize
In
for
front
that
of
publicly
everyone.
in front of everyone.
Oh my goodness.
I'm not perfect. I have my mistakes.
Are pigs flying outside?
So let's talk about one of the major areas of this conversation, and I'll just throw it out there: household responsibilities. That's one of the big debates about this, and especially in regards to relationships. And I will
And gender roles.
And I will set the tone by saying that a lot of millennial women, one of the worst things is for them, in my perception, is to be expected to perform or act like a quote-unquote 1950s housewife.
Yes, we were having this discussion earlier today and saying that some women don't want to have those expectations of cooking or cleaning. However, they have so many expectations of the male.
Right.
I should never have to pay for dinner if we're on a date.
Right.
You should always open the door for me and the car door for me and pull out my chair. And as I was talking to Toyin, we had a debate of, well, what are those things? Why do we expect those things from men, but we get so on the offensive or defensive side when they expect certain things from us? And Toyin, I'll let you chime in.
Right. We were discussing this, and I honestly couldn't think of a situation where I would just free-willing, just do something out of being expected of me as a woman. But there are definitely things where a guy, they're just supposed to do it. We talked about the guy taking out the trash, or it's the guy that will go ahead and fix the alarm when it's going off and change the battery or what have you. So for me, oftentimes, I don't go ahead and think of the situation, well, let me just go ahead and do this because I'm a woman, whether it's, cooking a meal or I'm expected to bake cookies just because I happen to be the woman in the relationship. I look at it more as, hey, we're both equal. Why can't you step in and help me out? I step in and help you out. But I completely understand where Chris and Nidra are saying when it comes to a man, it's kind of like, well, yeah, you're supposed to get the door. Yeah, you're supposed to get the trash.
And why do you feel like, sorry to cut you off, hon, why do you feel like we have those expectations of men? And it's fair for us to not live up to those same standards. As I was talking to you earlier, we were trying to figure out, well, what are the things that women do on a daily basis that, men can just expect from us, i.e. they open the door for us, they pull out our chair, but there's nothing that a woman does that we're just kind of expected to do.
Right.
Let me
Chris.
jump in because what I do want to point out is that, let's have that discussion. And in regards to that, a lot of millennial women, or a lot of women in general, expect men to be chivalrous, and with that, we're discussing opening the doors and not touching the trash, and in some ways, not even touching the gas pump. I've heard a lot of men say, my wife or my girlfriend will never touch the gas pump. I will always handle that. I'll even get up on Sunday night to do it so they have gas in their car. So men are taking on this burden to treat their wives or their significant others on this pedestal. And then when we look to the woman to say, okay, well, I'll do all of that, but I expect you at least to cook. It's this big debate. It's this battle of...
Or bring me my plate.
Or bring me my plate. Or, hey, why don't you straighten up? We can get down to the household versus outside of the house. But when men have any expectations of women and millennial women, it's this grand disrespect.
No, he did not.
Right. Why? How dare you expect me to do that?
So on that note, kind of looking at it from a woman's perspective, when there's a child involved, right? Mm-hmm. There are certain expectations just naturally with a child or a baby that you're going to say, oh, she has it. Not that I'm just going to go ahead and run and do it. So if the baby's crying, mm-hmm. and, you and I were discussing this in preparation for this talk, women obviously are engineered or made to be able to take care of their children, be able to feed their children naturally or what have you. Mm-hmm. So what if it's, okay, the mom's not breastfeeding their child. Are you going to go ahead and get up and say, oh, the baby's crying. Let me just go ahead and do it and not wait on Nishra and say, let me get the milk warmed. Let me go ahead and soothe her. Do whatever it is that the mom that you would normally expect to go ahead and step in and do. You talk about, well, the woman wants me to take out the trash, pump the gas. Okay, but do you also have the natural expectation that because Nitra, will have your child, that she's supposed to step in place and go ahead and do all the things that a typical mother back in the day would do?
Yes, there are those expectations that when it comes to children and especially newborns and babies that you expect women to do, and I would say take the initiative on, even have the passion
about.
But
why? What if, unfortunately, what if something were to happen where your wife couldn't be there?
Then I believe in those specific situations, then a man or I would have to step in. What I'm saying is that on a general basis, as you said, women are born with certain genetic nature items.
Now it's a genetic nature?
Well, you have a uterus, you have...
Yeah, to have the child, but once the child is here...
Right. Then we as a couple should discuss and come to an agreement on what we're doing as a unit. But there are those expectations that's her lane and I'm there to assist. And
so I think you should just remove that at this point. So when it comes to women, it's okay to say that there are certain things that you feel that we should do. And I guess it's okay for us to say there are certain things we feel that the male should do. I guess in the relationship, women are equipped with certain things to provide. Males are equipped with certain strengths or things to lift heavy objects or whatnot. Not saying that a woman cannot.
Yes.
But more so you're okay with the gender roles and you think they should stay and it's not a object of equality. That it should not be in that discussion. To say anything I can do, you can do. Instead of me getting up to get the baby, you should get the baby. Instead of me cooking, you can cook. Or I can take out the trash. Or I can open my own door. Where do you draw the line in that?
Right. And so when it comes to certain items, I think men are more inclined to do more manual labor. They're more inclined to fix things. I will speak for myself, have a natural interest in dealing with electronics or being a handyman around the house.
And to that comment, is that sexist, Toyin?
I don't know that it's sexist, but, it's great that in the confines of a marriage or relationship that, yes, Chris will do those things or a man will do those things. But the woman of 2017, like myself, who happens to be single, I'm doing all those things anyway on my own. Right. I'm taking out the trash. I'm, changing a light bulb. I'm also cleaning the dishes and making meals. So it's not that when there is a significant other in my life, because I've had this situation where I expect them to do all the things that I've been doing prior to them coming on board. It's not that I even go into it expecting any of that. And this led to us having a discussion earlier about, okay, what's the communication that you have when you're in a relationship? Because the women of today are independent. The women of today, it's, if there's no one around, literally, whether it's 2017 or 1960, things have to get done, right? So we're the ones having to be self-sufficient. But when you do come into the confines of a relationship, do those roles change just naturally when you have communication about what it is that you're going to do? Like, what did you guys do when you guys,
Well, I wanted to back up to what you said. So in understanding that in normal gender equality in the workplace, it should be equal. But if it comes into a relationship, there may be predetermined gender roles that are okay in a relationship, but should not be expected like everywhere else. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So like you said, for instance, you already take out the trash, fix light bulbs, and do things of that nature. Basically, you can do anything that a man in your household would do. Same thing at work. You can do anything. If someone has the same skill set, if they're a man, you can do the same thing as well.
Yes.
However, when you get in a relationship, does your mindset change? Does a bulb click and now you say, I'm in a relationship and now
I can give up some of those things.
I don't have to have that equality within my relationship.
Well, it's funny that you ask that because honestly, I haven't had to think about it too much. I've always just kind of continued how I've been unless the person has brought it up and maybe complained and said, hey, stay in your lane, let me do this. I got it. I'm a guy. Or if the person I have had this will say, oh, well, you're a little too independent. Let a man go ahead and take the lead. So it's not something where I just naturally will say, okay, I'm in this relationship. Let me now defer to these gender roles. I often will continue to do what I've always done. But if the guy does offer to help, then by all means, great, I'll accept it. But I think it comes down to honestly having a conversation. And that's what I respect. I don't respect someone new coming into my life and we're getting to know each other and it, goes down the line and they say, well, hey, I'm here in your home and you haven't made a meal for me. Well, I didn't know that I had to.
Right.
You're in my home. Why haven't you made a meal for me?
Okay.
So I think when I'm in a relationship, it's nice to be able to have that discussion of expectations, not that, because I'm a woman or because I'm a guy, you're supposed to do this.
Right. And Chris and I talk about that a lot, and our podcast listeners know about setting expectations and how that is so very, very important in a relationship, that whole communication aspect, so that you don't feel demanded. I mean, in our household, I am the one who does the majority of the cooking, but that is something Chris and I have communicated, and we set that expectation. Just in the same manner, Chris does most of the laundry and I have that expectation of him, but we've set that. I think if he came in the door, to your example, and said, where's my meal? Yeah, as a millennial, I would look at him like, are you kidding me right now? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
So I understand that.
So doesn't it bring about challenges when it comes to dating? Because for a man trying to show equality and be equal, but you're also wanting to be chivalrous as well. But if I'm holding the door, then I'm looking at you as if I should hold the door. You deserve the door to be held, which means then we're not looking at each other at 50-50. You get what I'm saying?
I do. And, we were, again, in prep talking about this. I've had men actually go out of their way to not get the door, as if it's to say, hey,
Wow.
And they've even said to me, well, hey, it's 2016, 2017. Why do I have to get the door for you? And I'll admit, I have that expectation. Well, that's just what you're supposed to do, and I shouldn't expect that you're just going to go ahead and walk in front of me and make sure you close the door behind yourself and, not let it open for me. In my relationships, yes, I've expected the man to go ahead and get the door for me of the car. But I'm not saying I'm a feminist, like, oh, I can't get the door for him. I actually will reach over and then open the door for my partner as well in those situations. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's security in looking at the chivalry of a man and what they're supposed to do. I mean, maybe it's just kind of like that nostalgia of, well, that's what happens. That's what we see as little girls on TV.
Right.
But I feel comfortable in that. I'm not going to lie, but I completely feel uncomfortable if, I've made a meal for someone and, out of the goodness of my heart, and I just say, hey, can you please do the dishes? And they say to me, well, my grandmother didn't ask my grandfather to do the dishes. I'm just like, well, wait a minute,
Right.
Why can't that situation be a little bit more like, hey, she did this for me. Let me just go ahead and naturally just step in and help her out.
Right.
But that provides a hard place for men as well, because when we're dating or we have an interest and you want to pay for the meal, should I go in expecting that, okay, I'll pay for the first, whoever asked the person on a date should pay, or should the man always pay? I think when we were dating, you paid maybe in the second
I think
or third.
the first couple of dates or first few dates that the man should definitely pay if he was the one to approach the woman and asked her out. I definitely believe that's the case. However, after you've been dating for so long and you realize that you really want to build something with that person and this is going to be your partner, then we should be partners in everything. I should not expect you to carry 100% of the load. And if that includes paying all the bills when we go out to eat, I definitely believe that should be shared amongst the two of us.
Right, because you're trying to build a unit or a team and a partnership with a mate, but then one partner is expecting the other partner to carry 90% of the load or 70% of the load, and that's not fair.
It's not.
But then you're asking for equality as well. So,
and I'll ask, Toying, as currently dating on the dating scene, do you feel like it's unfair to ask men that one, like you said, you had a friend who said they should pay for at least 6 months. The first 6 months, they should pay for all the bills, or, that he should be the one to pick you up and drive everywhere, or, all those things. At what point do you say, and you're not willing to give up anything? Like, we expect so much from them, and we're not giving up the same amount.
Well, what I'll say is, living in New York, having lived in DC, living in LA, there's no way that I can honestly expect a man to not pay to pay for everything for 6 months.
I agree.
If you're seeing each other exclusively for 6 months straight, you're obviously seeing each other maybe 2 or 3 times a week, maybe even more. I can't have my hand out every time like, oh, do you have this? Or are you doing this for me? I don't think it's fair.
But there are some women
who do.
Right.
And I don't understand those women, because in the cities that I've been in, yes, they're large cities, but men are looking at me again. It's a new age. It's a new year.
Right.
Pull some of the weight. And I don't even have to have anyone tell me that. I just naturally do it. Maybe the first 2 dates, again, like you said, if he asks me out, yes, I expect, or it's happened where he just offers and, I'll pull my wallet out and he says, no, I got it.
I'll have to say, though, if a man actually asks me,
right,
I think I would feel a certain type of way. Like, let me volunteer. Let me go for the reach. Reach for your purse, and then he can say, no, I have it, or he'll let you continue reaching.
And not that fake reach, right, where you're just like, let me just play it off like I want to pay, but I'm not really going to do it. Right. So, again, for me, living in New York and, these other large cities, I often will just naturally, after like the second date, I got this one, you have it, and just back and forth that way.
And I would say when Nitra and I were dating, I really appreciated when not only did she reach, but she paid, and she literally said, "No, I'll take care of this." And to me, it created this partnership perspective of, well, we're in this together, because she's not looking to me to just shower her, take care of her, which then creates a contradiction, because and some women, and from a man's perspective, expect them to be taken care of as if they were 1950s housewives. But then you don't want the man to have that same expectation or treatment of you.
Expound.
Being, okay, let's go with the 1950s relationship. Man goes out, he goes to work, he comes home, he brings the money, provides for the family, takes care of the stability of the family.
Yes.
the same expectation of a woman who takes care of everything inside of the home. She cooks, she cleans, she irons clothes, she does all of the manual labor of
Again,
the
which
home.
is a job. I'll say that. It's
What-
a job, just like a
It
man's
is.
going
It is a
out.
job.
Yes, it is, and I'm not discounting that at all. But then now to bring forth that same thing in today's day and age, 2017, a woman says, "Man, take care of me, pay for the bills when we go out, pull out my chair, open my doors. Your money is our money, my money is my money." But then when a man says, "Okay, I'm cool with all that, but I expect you to cook," and then it's this big blow up. Well, hold up. Don't try to domesticate me. I'm not your 1950s wife.
Right,
And it's like,
right.
wait a minute. What do we...
Oh, and to back up, so you're okay with the statement of your money is our money and my money is my money?
I am not. I was using
Oh,
that
I
statement
was gonna say,
as a
wait a
reference
minute.
point of 1950s and the idea of...
I was going
and
to
the concept-
capitalize on
I
that.
know you were. You were looking at my wallet right now. But I think we're having a great discussion about that, and I believe it creates a lot of tension in the dating scene. But I'm speaking from my perspective, having been in the dating scene, but also when we were dating and you paid and you showed me without any hesitation that it was a team environment that almost
I
alleviated
did not
some of the
pay
stress.
on the first date, just to clarify.
No, you didn't.
Okay, thank you.
It was Dutch, but I appreciate you saying that.
No, it wasn't on our first date.
Yeah, when we went skydiving, you paid for your part, I paid for my part.
We weren't dating then.
Okay, that was the setup. That was the setup for the next date.
We were just friends.
But yes, so from a man's perspective, I will say this again. I'm realizing that there are situations and events throughout a day when I do not think about the challenges and the offenses that men do to women.
I have a question for you,
Yes.
Chris. So why do you think it, like earlier you mentioned the example of when I told you about the taxes and I mentioned something and you kind of pushed it aside.
Mm-hmm.
But when a male said it, it was like, oh, let me think about that. Why do you feel like there's more power in a man's statement than there is in a woman's statement? Whether subconsciously or not, where does that inclination come from?
I'm pausing for thought.
This is a long pause.
It is. So I would say, without getting into the specifics of that situation, in some ways you feel like me as a man, I understand it. I have a general knowledge about what we're going through. So then when you come asking a question that I may or may not have either thought about or question myself, it challenges, one, it challenges me. And two, if I haven't thought about it, then it carries that, well, maybe it wasn't that important. Am
So
I making
because
sense?
you did not think about it, but I have, it's not important.
Yes, I guess that's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying in that moment. I have since been enlightened, but that's what I was saying in that moment.
I have some choice words to say, but I'll keep them to myself at this current time. But that's messed up.
It is, and like I said, it wasn't anything that I intentionally did, but when you mentioned it, it was like, oh, that's not important. I mean, we're going to work this out anyway. But it wasn't until the other the other guy said it, that I was like, oh, that is, okay, now let's go back and work this out.
So somewhere in your brain, you're subconsciously wired to think of a woman's opinion at lesser value than a man's opinion. Would that be a correct statement?
Not anymore, but I would say that may be the case in the past.
Good save.
Or I had to save myself. But I mean, it's situations like that we don't realize occur on a day-to-day basis. They can occur in work, they can occur out in the store, they can occur on a date, and they can occur even in a marriage. Mm-hmm. And that creates some tension, some resentment, some difficulties from a woman's perspective. And I don't want to put words in you all's mouths.
No,
but
you're right. It definitely does create some discomfort and like, man, this is a work in progress. But I understand that we are human, my husband and myself, and we are working towards a goal. And we go through issues like that. I guess most importantly, the first step is awareness. Mm-hmm. And now that you are aware that exists and it occurs, you know, I can look forward to you in the future to take that pause and say, maybe what she's saying is correct, or
Right.
it has that importance. Let me look into it deeper. And I think that's a fair statement to say, and brave of you to say it on the podcast. And I bet a lot of men probably are now thinking to themselves that they do it, without thinking about it as well. So the first step is awareness, so
Right.
that you can correct the problem and change your mindset and your thinking. But
Right.
if you don't know there's a problem, then
Right.
it just continues to be, and nothing ever comes of it.
Right, and that's exactly what prompted the topic of this podcast. And to me, that is the intentional result of all of the marches and the protests that occurred the weekend of January 21st. It is to create awareness to the issue and then force people to do a self-reflection of how they are either contributing or ignoring the problem that's out there.
Right.
So shout out to everyone who participated and everyone who supported the marches. I personally have gotten a lot out of that. And I'm challenging everyone to think about a lot of the other protests that have occurred, and to think if you have taken a step back. And I'm not going to reference any one specific protest. I'm just going to say, to me, that is the intent. Any protest is to force you to think about how, like I said, you're either contributing or ignoring the issue.
And if it were you, how would you be affected?
So I have a question in regards to equality. Let's
Yes.
just say all things being equal in a relationship. We do understand that there are certain gender things based on nature, being pregnancy and birthing the child, that actual act, but the raising of the child can be shared. Are there things that women are willing to give up in order to have that equality? Would you not expect a man to open the door because now we're being equal, but you don't expect him to also ask you to cook? Like, in order to have equality, there are certain sacrifices that need to be made. But do you expect him to always, men open the door, but also don't expect me to cook? I feel like that's
Basically,
a little unfair.
do you want your cake and eat it too? Of course
Good
we
point.
do.
Exactly.
Yes, and so do men. Men want the same cake, and we want to eat it as well. But you're putting the load on us to do everything, but then you're asking us to be equal.
Well, again, it's expectations. You asked me if there was a fire right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, you asked me if there was a fire in this apartment building, what would you expect me to do, being the guy in the situation? I
Right.
said, well, to get me out of the house first,
Right.
That's just what I thought of.
Right.
And you asked, well, why is that the case? And I said, well, because you're a guy and you're
Right.
supposed to think of the woman who's in front of you
In distress
first,
and help,
right?
right.
Whether she's your friend, your wife, a woman
Right.
across the street. Would I want to give up, that, or you get in the door for me for equality? I like that stuff.
Okay,
To
that's
be
fair.
honest.
That's fair. And I think you
You know?
brought up the point of when you were out of town and in an uncomfortable city, when you expected your mate to provide for the transportation and the logistics
And the security.
and the security,
I
to
did.
be aware of what's going on, to be aware of the situation, how are we getting from point A
Right.
to point B. But that was also one of those gender roles where you expected the man
Well,
to
and it
handle.
just wasn't that I expected it. He insisted because he said, I am the man in the situation, so I have to do this for you. So there's just that understanding. in
But
that
did you not
situation.
feel like I wonder, from a feminist viewpoint, I know a lot of women who are that navigator, kind of put logistics together for their household. They're the ones
Right.
who get the kids ready, put them together, have all the itineraries together. They hold the plane tickets or whatever it may be.
Right.
And the husband's kind of just like, okay,
along,
follows along. So I guess it can go either way.
Right.
It can, and maybe it's situational.
Yeah.
In that case, we were in a foreign country, and I just naturally kind of
Gravitated toward him.
towards him and that security. But yeah, I've
That's
definitely in my
understandable.
relationships have been, the one holding the plane tickets or the theater tickets, and I got this, logistics wise, and he can just sit back and relax because I might be more organized or
Right.
proactive. But again, it might be just that it's situational as well.
Right.
And to your question, I feel like I am willing to give up some things so that it's a more equal playing field.
Okay, what's one of those things? Because I'm listening. You have one in mind? No?
Yeah. For example, sometimes I do take out the trash.
Okay.
And I do expect you to cook on some days when I'm not feeling like cooking.
Okay.
So
that's
little
fair.
things like that. It's not always 100% or nothing.
Right.
It's more of a 80-20 kind of mix. And I'm willing to bend on that.
So then let me ask this. Is it fair? Is it possible for two people to lead? Or does one person
Now I
have
feel like I'm getting to a biblical sense.
No, I'm not trying to make this biblical. I'm making it purely logical and about relationships. Is it
Well, you know what they say, anything with two heads is a monster. So I don't know. Is
That's a
it
fair
possible to be two heads of a household? At some point, someone, in my opinion, carries the top notch. Just like everything in life, there's hierarchy to everything, including the household.
Right. I hear you.
Toyin?
On that,
And I will even caveat this because I would say you just said that, or you said earlier, right now you're doing a lot of the things for yourself. You are taking out the trash, replacing light bulbs, moving furniture. You're doing all of those things. And even you're coordinating the logistics of things that you need to figure out. So when it comes to pairing that together with a mate,
mm-hmm.
do you assume that he will then pick it up, or do you then say, I have this, you fall back? Like that dynamic
in a
and
relationship, I
equality.
mean, people have different strengths, right? It's not to say that, one is stronger than the other, or that we just both are battling for power and control.
Mm-hmm.
Again, for me, because I like to communicate as effectively as I can with my partner,
Mm-hmm.
I would expect that we would have that discussion, again, not in a biblical sense, but just in general, of what's good for our home.
Right. Right.
What's the good for the benefit of our relationship, our family, what are our goals, and how do we see it panning out?
Right.
So while I might be the one who's better at putting a trip together and planning for it, he might be better at getting the organization for the contractor working on our home.
Right.
Again, he has different skill sets. He has different strengths than I do.
Right.
So, of course, like Nisha said, two heads can equal a monster. At some point, there's going to be one that will dominate and kind of have the final say or the final decision. But I prefer where we've come to that decision together. That
Understood.
okay, it's the two of us. The guy or the girl, they might be the one to have that final say, but we've come to that conclusion through discussion and together.
And I guess that's a new thing that we have to recognize, that in our day and age, that head of household may not necessarily be male.
Right.
We have stay-at-home dads, mothers who go out and, are the breadwinners and take care of the household and kind of make those financial or, head of household decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's just a new time and a new age.
Right. Right. And I think the overall point that we keep saying consistently, and the biggest takeaway for our listeners, is that communication is the key. And it is very dangerous when you enter a relationship, and I'll say with anyone, not necessarily a romantic relationship, but a friend or family, that you don't really set those expectations of how this is going to go. Because if everyone is coming then in with their own specific expectations because of their past, then someone can expect somebody to wash the dishes, and someone can say, if I cook, you clean.
Right.
But I never asked you to cook, so why are you telling me to clean? And now we're getting into this big argument because we never agreed to it. So have that conversation, set those expectations in everything, and I believe you will see the very positive results.
Yes, honey, I have to agree. Communication is truly everything in a relationship, and setting expectations definitely sits number one on the list of communication. But guess what, guys? We are officially out of time for the 5th episode of Live.Laugh.Word.
Number 5 is a wrap.
Yes. We want to say thank you, Toyin, for being here with us today. And we also want to say thank you to our listeners for the continued support. And we just appreciate you all so much. If you have anything you want to tell us or talk to us or any ideas for new shows, feel free to contact us at Live.Laugh.Word@gmail.com.
Holla back, Live.Laugh.Word@gmail.com. And you can also find us on Instagram at Live.Laugh.Word. Until next time,
See you then.
we'll catch you in the streets.
It's official right now. In 4 minutes or less, we gonna crown all of them right now. Dedicate my mama, your mama, you, your baby's mama's mama's mama. This is dedicated to you, wife, you. If you're near a woman right now, wherever you at, just turn to him and say,